All right, hi everyone. I am the last speaker. I hope I don't keep you folks for too long. Trying to be easy on you folks. Quick background about me. I'm Rahul. I'm a principal data scientist at Navy Federal Credit Union. How many here have heard of the company or are members? Oh, okay. Lots of folks. I should be careful about what I speak. Good. And how many folks here have had some involvement with generative AI and its applications here? Okay, a significant bunch. Anyone skeptical about it? Anyone thinking we should not be drinking the Kool-Aid with generative AI? Nice, nice. I like to have folks here. Okay, good. So today, I want to talk about a few things that I've learned working on generative AI at Navy Federal. The crux of that being, we as an institution are also trying to use generative AI to deliver good value, both within the organization as well as outside to our members. And here, today with my talk, I'm trying to deliver some value to you folks. If you are planning to use generative AI or are evaluating whether you should use generative AI in your organization, I hope today you can take some pointers about what you can do right so that there's a higher percentage of success down the line. Okay, that's enough about me. So in banking, of course, yeah, there we go. Why does AI matter in banking? I just want to underline the concept first. Of course, you can enhance the customer experience. It goes without telling. I don't want to belabor the point. You can build chatbots. You can build customized emails to your customers or members using generative AI, as well as a combination of other AI technologies, including classical machine learning. You can do improved profiling and risk management. Again, the theme here being your organization might have systems in place that is already employing classical ML to derive value out of your data. But what generative AI is going to come in and do is there's a lot of unstructured data within your organization that is untapped. You've probably never had models that are capable of mining all of that data to a significant extent to derive value out of it until the dawn of ChatGPT and whatnot. That goes without saying. And then cost savings, of course, productivity-wise, imagine we have tools coming in like Copilot. I'm not sure how many folks have heard here. Microsoft Copilot can help your developers code faster without having to type as many lines of code. I mean, your developer can mention that they want to build code to do X, and the tool can really just print out code to help you do that without maybe actually typing out the code. Imagine how much time can be saved by doing something like that. So just a few pointers on what's the value proposition here. Now, stepping back, if we think about generative AI in the grand scheme of things, how many folks here follow Gartner and their analyses for how the market's doing in terms of new technology? So if you look at the curve here, I hope it's visible to a significant extent. But what I'm trying to draw attention to is generative AI is at the peak of inflated expectations. If you look at the curve, of course, we are gaining traction as much as possible in the news for how much is possible. And there's obviously going to come that trough of disillusionment, and then eventually we will level out and reach a plateau of productivity. That goes without saying, but I think there's still a few things that organizations, they want to use generative AI. Everyone wants to use generative AI. They want to get on the bandwagon, but I think not everyone is doing things right in terms of setting themselves up for success using generative AI. So even if we have all of this happening, you can see some technologies like computer vision has kind of reached the plateau of productivity a few years before, or maybe a few 5 to 10 years before. We might not have thought that that was actually going to come out of the gimmick phase and actually deliver outcomes, right? It's so crazy to think about how our cameras can help us do stuff that was very manual, very document-oriented before this came along. Banks use computer vision as well. We use vision to detect check fraud. Any checks that are submitted, we scan those. Any documents or forms that are submitted to us, we scan those so that we can do the process faster of consuming that information that members just submitted and move on to the next task of delivering value to them. Now, setting the stage, going back, what are the challenges of implementing AI in banking? I know Christina, before in today's talk, she mentioned about some of the concerns in healthcare. Many of the same concerns affect us in AI as in banking as well. What we have is data security concerns. Right now, the stage of the industry is such that building models, building especially generative AI models in-house, is a tough task. We don't have data that can train or fine-tune such models in-house. Maybe data is not ready, or maybe your infrastructure is not ready. It can be a huge number of things that's stopping you from actually getting some value out of it. Now, if you switch to using APIs, sure, the APIs by OpenAI, Microsoft, whatnot, have the capability of kind of offsetting that problem that you have on the hardware side or the capability side, but you have to give your data. And I don't think many banks are going to be comfortable giving out that data. That's a really valid concern. Secondly, regulation and compliance. Even if we manage to use technology as much as it's capable today, regulation and compliance is quickly catching up. I'm not sure how many folks here paid attention or found in their newsfeed the new Biden announcement that went out. The government wants to kind of lay out the rules in terms of how generative AI and in general use of AI is governed at an increased level going forward. So it might be a situation even today where this technology is ahead of its time against regulations, but we know that it's going to soon catch up. There's tons of misuse across the internet that are very apparent. What can happen if generative AI is used for the wrong reasons? We don't need to talk about those examples. Those are pretty self-apparent. And then replacing legacy systems. This is one thing I wanted to talk about as well. The concern here being many organizations have robust systems in place to develop AI and then deploy it into a productionized environment. But how many of us are ready to deploy these kinds of technologies with the same infrastructure we have in place? We at Navy Federal actually came across this bottleneck and decided to combat it truly in the fashion of data transformation. We have been on a journey, actually. We call it mission data within the enterprise. We have been on a journey of switching over our legacy data systems, our legacy model development systems from on-prem to the cloud. But then even if we have moved to the cloud, we have found moving to the generative AI step challenging in terms of commissioning resources and then in terms of storing data that's capable of feeding generative AI models as such. It's not a process that can happen out of the box. Trust me. Replacing legacy systems is a huge concern, not just for banks, but for pretty much everyone using it. Unless you're a small company, you probably won't have to overturn much. But if you are an established organization, of course, you're going to have to come across this and deal with it, depending on your use case. Now, moving over, what can you do right to still position yourselves for success using AI, especially generative AI? I think the 4 pillars are still the same. That's the fun part. I've realized this. I'm the tech lead on a team that's looking to evaluate channels of communications from members and really mine that information for all kinds of outcomes. What I've seen based on my experience is everything that we strove to set up Navy Federal's platforms, data, all of the surrounding peripherals for success in classical AI, they stand the same for generative AI. Data strategy is still critical. Storing data, especially the one that's going to go into such models, text data, it's unstructured, it's hard to maneuver. You need to have a strategy that helps you store these data, maintain the quality of these data so that they can be fed into models continuously and then deliver value out of those. Secondly, access to AI models and algorithms. I think this is something that's going to keep happening until we reach a certain plateau in generative AI. New models come out every day, every hour, if not more than that. And so it's a pretty dynamic field. I think staying on top of new developments is key for every organization. You might be, to give you a quick example without going too much into the technicals, there were models with 70 billion parameters that were supposed to be the best yesterday, and then a new model comes out today that probably doesn't have 70 billion parameters, but has just 7 or 13 billion parameters. Imagine the scale that it brought down the number of computes that you need to do to deliver the same value. And so that's how dynamic the field is. So having access to new models, whether you want to call an API or whether you want to bring them into your system and run them in a firewalled fashion, decide whatever you want to do, but you need to have a pipeline that can deliver the new and the best models to your system. Thirdly, infrastructure and architecture. Of course, I spoke about that. You need to have something that can support the use of these models, and that includes computes in the sense of CPUs as well as GPUs. These models are really hungry in terms of compute. Even if you have the data to train them, you need to have the hardware that can support running these models. This is something that we also came to terms with within my organization. Point taken. I think we have decided a good path forward, but that was a key contention issue that had to be moved past. And it's a cost commitment as well. If you want to bring in these computes that are capable of running such models, it's a pretty huge investment, and the builds, they look drastically different. Imagine I'm in calls discussing the value proposition of these models and then comparing what kind of new compute we need compared to the previous compute that exists. And the costs are 10x or more. And you have to be able to justify the value that you're getting out of those if you want to commission these resources. Finally, people, process, and governance. I think this is probably something that exists already today. If you have matured machine learning pipelines using AI, you should have people, process, and governance in place. But the key aspect there is these need to evolve to come to terms with generative AI. I don't think these models can be monitored the same way that you have classical AI models being monitored. They have different metrics. They have evolving metrics that are coming up to ascertain how useful they are, what's the value being delivered from them. And so these need to evolve. And the people part of it, it's not good to assume that your standard data scientist, your generalized data scientists will be able to use generative AI models within the enterprise. That's far from the case, actually. Because the field is so dynamic, you need to bring in people on board who either have an understanding of it, have applied it in a productionized sense, and who are capable of keeping up with the developments in the field. They need to be able to research or have an established feed of understanding what's happening in the field today, every day, and then be able to bring that into practice within your organization. So that the people aspect also deserves upgrading as you choose to move in that direction. Maintaining and managing AI in banking. Once you move on to this, once you've figured out all of the 4 pillars, it's still a key job of maintaining and managing within the enterprise, because the successful implementation, I wanted to put this slide here, it's all rests upon having data governance practices and processes, because what we've observed is you have pipelines put in place. These models, it's really easy for them to put out junk values or dirty data. And it quickly starts losing its sheen once you start seeing that come out. So managing the pipelines, maintaining those for quality is really, really key. And that's something that you're going to have to come up with solutions with not just the data science team, but also your operations team. We call it ML ops within the organizations. You can call that AI ops now moving forward, or LLM ops. These are called large language models. So those are pretty key as well. Finally, just a few things. I asked a few folks here if you're skeptical about generative AI, the Kool-Aid, whether you're wanting to drink it as an organization or not. I think culture change, it's pretty similar to what we saw when moving from on-prem to cloud. There was a huge amount of distrust, a huge amount of skepticism that we had to overcome to move all of our databases, all of our systems for processing and building models from on-prem to cloud. So it's a lot about culture change as well. The value that you want to derive, it needs to be enforced top-down as well as from within the team. You want to be able to inform your team of what's possible, what are the shortcomings, all of those things, to truly combat and derive value out of this. Investing in AI, I think I touched upon that point. There's several cloud providers today that can give you the ability to do to run models of this size at will. You just have to be able to commit to the price, of course, but choosing between those providers is still key. I don't think there's a clear winner out there. You have several platforms like Snowflake, Databricks. They're doing a good job of coming up to terms with what are the needs of the industry. They have teams specific to industries that are trying to cater to the needs. I think organizations still need to be doing a good job of choosing what suits your needs the best and not kind of overlooking or trying to go for the most famous option out there. That's really key, even today. And the talent, I think we spoke about that. You need to hire talent that can keep up with the pace, upgrade itself with the pace, and then be able to bring all of the... Generative AI is in a phase where it can be considered the most research-oriented stuff that's trying to be implemented in organizations. We have never come so close into the context of implementing something that has research papers published yesterday, and we are trying to bring it into organizations. Yeah, I want to use this model today to derive value. That's probably never been the case, and it's going to keep getting challenged moving forward. So having talent that can help you do this in a realistic fashion, I think is very key. Otherwise, we are fooling ourselves, pushing money into stuff that's not giving us value. So be warned, for sure. And then, yeah, some ethical considerations. I had this slide here. I think all of the talks that are happening here at the conference, you must have covered this already, but these applications, they deserve a closer look in terms of how they're being implemented. Having transparent use, if we as a bank want to send customized emails to customers, members, we want to be transparent about the fact that these are being generated using this technology, just so there's no misunderstanding, just so there's a leveling of expectations on both ends. Non-biased, of course, implementing these, many of these models still have huge biases based on what data was used to train them. If you've heard already, much of the training that was done to provide data for ChatGPT models, it was done by scraping the internet. And so it comes with its own biases. Whatever was found on the internet, of course it took that inside, and then it's going to spout all of that in just the same fashion. So establishing guardrails so that bias is not playing out in terms of the outputs of your generative AI pipelines is very key. And then accountability, I think banks, of course, are highly regulated. Even if you're not in an industry that's highly regulated, I think it will eventually come to a scenario where you will have to take a look at what's being done and how it's affecting your customers. Even though there's no regulations at place, customers can make their own decisions, right? If you're not using technology for the good, of course, they can cancel you. They can stop using your product, right? So that's really key over there as well. Finishing up, I think, this new technology, we have huge promises of how it's going to transform the banking industry. I'm sure that translates to everyone else as well. But this goes for both sides as an organization as well as a personal scale. I want to say I'm doing my PhD on the side as well as I work. And I've found this technology to be super helpful in studies as well. So this is a personal note, nothing too much related to the topic at hand. But if you're not using generative AI, I can guarantee you, if not today, you will fall behind the ones that are using this technology very soon, if not today. So please try out. Please use it to the best of your judgment. I'm not saying rely 100% on it. I'm saying use it judiciously to see what you can derive as value out of it, and you will do very good. Don't copy what it produces. That's not what it's meant for. But look at what it's producing and make the best of it. Quick note. You can see there's a small watermark at the bottom made with Gamma. This entire presentation was made with generative AI. I did not touch a single slide in this presentation. I just told it what I wanted to talk about. It generated those points. I checked them for fact, accuracy, et cetera, whether they're telling a cohesive story. I did not have to end up changing any of the text. I probably inserted the Gartner screenshot. I wanted to do that just to put perspective here in the slides. Otherwise, that's all there is. So if you're still skeptical about what's possible to derive out of this, maybe this is a small example of that. And I will rest my case with that. Hopefully, there's no slide after this. Yes, I have to check. It generated those slides for me, so I have to be sure. And that's it. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening in. Hope that was helpful.